So at this point, I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Seguin ISD School Board of Trustees for January 23rd, 2018. And I can say I believe we do have a quorum, full quorum, everybody's here. So and this is being called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, section 551.043 of the Texas Government Code. Mr. Flores, could you lead us in the pledges this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Now for a moment of silence. Okay, welcome everybody. Glad to see everyone here this evening. We're going to start off with Dr. Gutierrez with his announcements.
Good evening, board members and Seguin ISD community. It's nice to see a full house this evening. There's so much to celebrate. I'd like to share some of our highlights since our December 12th board meeting and some news across the district. So there's a lot of good things to share, so bear with me for a minute. First off, our secondary students continue to excel in a variety of extracurricular areas. And here are just a few examples of our student successes. The Matador Tennis competed in the January 12th Winter Classic Tournament at East Central High School. And congratulations to our Matadors Diego Gonzalez and Caitlin Enlow for taking first place in the mixed doubles. Breezemeister Middle School one-act play thespians earned first place after competing in their first ever one-act contest. Great job to these students and their teacher, Tommy Jackson. Seguin High School Business Professionals of America, BPA students competed in the 2018 regional contest on January the 23rd. 27 Matadors qualified for the state conference in Corpus Christi in February. Our Lady Matador soccer team earned second place at the Edgewood Invitational Tournament, going 5-1, while the boys powerlifting team took second place at the Navarro High School powerlifting meet. Over the weekend, Barnes Middle School Robotics took first place at the TCA Region 13 Robotics Competition. They have now advanced to the state competition to be held in April, most likely in Hutto, Texas. The Seguin High School Mariachi Matador earned a first rating at the Texas Association of Mariachi Educators Area Central Competition, and the students have advanced to state, where they will compete on February the 10th at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley in Edinburgh. I also had the pleasure of attending the NJROTC Military Ball on Saturday, and I want to thank Commander Robertson and his students for inviting me to be part of their special evening. I did leave right before the dancing though. We had dozens of FFA students place in the Guadalupe County Youth Livestock and Homemaker Show last week, including Faith Irwin, first place cattle, Jamie Blair, second place cattle, Katie Kruger, second place swine, Brooklyn Haker, second place goats, Harley White, first place lambs, Ashley Parson, reserve grand champion rabbits, Julie Draybrought, first place rabbits, Jacob Tyman, second place rabbits, Morgan Schultze, grand champion baked goods, Cassidy Kelso, reserve grand champion baked goods, and Megan Billings, reserve grand champion handicraft. Congratulations to these students and their families for their hard work leading up to the county show last week. Yesterday, we hosted the monthly Superintendent's Teacher Communication Council meeting. The TCC received information on calendar options and provided feedback on possible 2018 to 2019 calendar options. Staff will provide a couple of drafts for the TCC members to share with their campus colleagues, and then we'll gather more input when we meet again on February the 5th. Mr. Esquivel has arranged to host tours of Seguin High School on Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. for community members who were unable to tour the new school. On August the 31st, during our grand opening, our very own Seguin High School students will serve as tour guides for anyone who wishes to see this beautiful facility. Please encourage your family and friends to take a moment to go and check out our pride and joy for this year, our new Seguin High School. MBLC is hosting the monthly graduation walk and award ceremony on Friday at 12:15. Mr. Law's event is attended by many of our students, family members, and friends. I would also like to encourage you, if you have not had the opportunity to see one of those monthly celebrations, I'd encourage you to come and be part of that this Friday at 12:15. Please come and support our MBLC students. The Seguin High School Theater Department will present the acclaimed musical Wizard of Oz, and where they will have multiple performances on February the 2nd through the 3rd at 7 p.m. and February the 4th at 2:30 p.m. in the Performing Arts Center at Seguin High School. Tickets are $12 pre-sale and $15 for adults at the door, $8 pre-sale, and $10 at the door for students and children. They are available at Gift and Gourmet and Court Street Coffee Shop. I am looking forward to seeing the Wizard of Oz. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for your support of Seguin ISD and our students.
Well, that is a hard act to follow, Dr. Gutierrez. At this point, each of the board members will give a very short report, please, about activities that we've been involved in throughout the month of January. I can say that I was out at McQueenie earlier this month, and they were kicking off something called It's Time Texas Community Challenge, which is sponsored by HEB, and it's all about people getting out and staying healthy and eating healthy. And I do have a pledge here if any of you board members would like to sign it. And it just says that I recognize that a healthy community is more united, more productive, and more prosperous. As a result, I am committed to the health of my community and pledge to make our community a model for others to follow. I'll leave that up here. Also, we had a couple of workshops throughout the month of January. One was a strategic planning, another was focusing on food services. And then I was honored last night to be at the National Honor Society induction. All right, Mr. Holt.
Thank you. I also attended the National Honor Society induction last night as well, and we saw 69 of our high school students be inducted into the NHS. We also, this past weekend before, I attended the Texas UIL State Spirit Championship, and we'll be discussing recognizing the cheer here in a minute in regards to that. I also attended the district luncheon, holiday luncheon prior to the break, where I've got to spend some time with the staff here at the district office, and I wish them all well for a safe return, and I hope we all made it back. I haven't heard any that didn't, but and I appreciate all the support too and quick notices to the community on the inclement weather days that we've had. So I just wanted to get that out there as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Effenberger?
I really, excuse me, I really don't have very much to report, but I'm just overwhelmed by all these gifts that were presented to us this evening for being a board member. And I have really enjoyed serving as your board member. I'm retired, a retired teacher, and so I know what it is to teach and be in the classroom all day long and have to sit through a meeting like this. So I appreciate all the gifts and the thoughts. Thank you.
Mr. Amador.
I also attended the National Honor Society induction yesterday. I hope we have even more next year. The rest is really just boring stuff. I'm discussing parking lots and blackboards, and maybe next month I'll have something more better anyway.
All right, Mr. Jenkins.
I too attended the National Honor Society last night, and then I was also honored to go to Potlatch Elementary and attend a morning assembly and be honored there by the children. I can tell you this, the kids there are engaged, they're happy, the staff is happy. And I don't know who smiled more, me or them, but we had a great time, so thank you.
Ms. Reel?
Well, I really haven't had a lot of time. I've been pretty busy with some family obligations this past month. But I'd like to use my time to recognize one of our NJROTC seniors, Lee Allen Berger. He's been working really hard to get into West Point, and he's quite an amazing young man. And last week he received his nomination from Senator Gonzalez, so I'm super proud of him. And senior service tomorrow, everybody, I'm sure we'll all be there. And a really fun event coming up Saturday, February 10th at 8:45 to about 11:30 is the Destination Imagination Rising Stars competition. And if you've never been to one of those, I highly recommend it because it's a lot of fun watching the little kids.
All right, and Mr. Flores?
I too don't have much to report other than the workshops that we attended for this last month. So.
All right, thank you, thank you. Okay, moving on in the agenda to our recognition campus presentations. We're going to start off with our campus recognition presentation for Rodriguez and Mr. Amador. I believe that you're going to be presenting this.
It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's feature. Okay. It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's featured campus, Rodriguez Elementary School. Ms. Allison Seidenberger serves as principal at Rodriguez, and she is here tonight to share a video highlighting some of the student-focused initiatives on our campus.
Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Gutierrez, Ms. Jimenez, and members of the board for allowing us the opportunity to showcase our campuses. I brought with me some individuals that you'll see represented within the video from the various classrooms that we're presenting. With our some of the changes within the special education programs, we've continued to serve our inclusion students and our essential academic students, which were programs that we've always had. But this year, we have also added on a structured academics setting, a behavioral support element, and then resource. In addition to that, within all of our classrooms, focus on engagement. And so what you're going to see represented within our video is actually in-class experiences for our students, showcasing all of the various ways that we are utilizing sensory supports. As you'll see represented in front of you, both last year and this year, a portion of our Seguin Education Foundation grants have been put toward these efforts. And so I wanted you to see some of the items. Some of these things, for instance, this blue chair and this one and that one, those came in this past week, and we already have them out in the classroom with our kinder team. So we're just very, very excited. The teachers are collaborating and working together through our PLCs, and I'm very proud that one of our structured teacher is actually operating a PLC on structured settings for the district. And so we're conversing campus to campus and working collaboratively, not only within our own building, but also within our district. And I think that's really powerful, and we're very excited about it. So I'm going to turn it over to the video, let you watch that, and then we'll talk a little bit more.
As educators, we want to meet the needs of all students. We understand that sensory support, along with instructional supports, increases student participation and engagement, our ultimate goal. As a campus that has specific programs for essential academics, structured academics, resource, inclusion, and behavior support, along with general education implications, Rodriguez Elementary staff are constantly seeking ways to improve our classroom environments. This year, our focus has been emphasized more on meeting sensory needs campus-wide based on our students' needs and the research, professional learning, and collaboration amongst our teachers. Classrooms include visuals, movement, flexible seating, and auditory supports, to name a few. However, our specialized classrooms support sensory needs at a deeper level with heavy work opportunities, sensory manipulatives, tactile tools, sensory deprivation, and deep pressure, for example. Students' needs are considered on an individual basis in order to best support them. The wonderful thing about Rodriguez is that all students can be supported as the need arises with any of the supports that we have available. For Rodriguez, all means all. Our work is to foster exceptional students to become exceptional citizens.
Hi, my name is Katie Darst and teach second grade at Rodriguez Elementary. I'm here to talk about my flexible seating in my classroom and some of the benefits that I see. One of the benefits is that the students are given choice onto where they can sit and where they can learn the best. They're given movement options, so they can get up and move around and get to a seat that is comfortable and where they can learn the best. It's a fun alternative to traditional seating. They are engaged in their task at hand, and ultimately that leads to more success in the long run.
My name is Deborah Rideau, and I teach first grade at Rodriguez Elementary. During our reading class, we do a phonics dance every day. It has great kinesthetic movement to keep the kids moving and help them with remembering the chunks. It helps them with their writing, their reading, and their spelling words every week. And it provides great visuals and catchy little phrases to help them with comprehension.
As kindergarten teachers, we receive all students in. Flexible seating is on the rise and is really not without merit. We've noticed research has shown that it promotes student engagement, creates a self-awareness of their own behavior, in addition to serving their individualized educational needs.
With flexible seating, we're looking for more student engagement, less behavior concerns, and we're looking forward to seeing it in our data. Because of the generous funding from Seguin Education Foundation, all kindergarten students will be impacted.
As an essential academics teacher, I believe all students are capable of learning. My goal is to help students realize their own potential to learn. One challenge is helping students with sensory processing disorders. Students that have sensory overload can become anxious, have behavioral problems, have a hard time self-regulating, and have a difficult time when attending to tasks. To help with sensory overload, I use a Yukibo beanbag and support pillow. The Yukibo is tailored to meet students' sensory needs. Students are able to self-regulate and seek deep pressure. The Yukibo also helps students feel secure. Students are more productive and independent in life.
I use flexible seating in my fourth grade classroom in several different ways. They enjoy going to the cafeteria. They'll have a little coffee shop. They get to take their shoes off and read around the room, lay on the carpet, and get comfortable. The reason I use flexible seating is because I love to read, and I want my students to love to read. And I love to get comfortable in reading, so I let them get comfortable as they are reading.
Being a special education teacher, we constantly have to change our roles to fit our children's needs. Our needs of our students this year are primarily for the sensory-based learning. As you can see around me, we do have a lot of stations. Our kids love to go to the pool. We also have a trampoline in our room that we can express a lot of energy in there and get their focus back on. We have a tremendous amount of stations in here, and they are constantly changing with the seasons, so our kids can learn about the seasons as well as their energy is getting out and their focus is getting regained. We have different stations from red, yellow, and blue stations, and it continues from red or like heavy hard breaks such as the rowing machine. We also have the weight balls. Our yellow stations are the seasonal pool, a creative play, and then we also have our puzzle station is our blue, the common corner. We also have our trampoline as well.
We have a flexible seating in our classroom. We use our balance balls that have the stability feet with them. And some of my children come in and have a high level activity. I offer them a balance ball so that they can have some activity movement while they're working. We find that as a child moves, if they have some type of higher activity level, that it gives them a higher focus and also calms them down to be able to complete tasks.
Hi, I'm Beverly DeLeon. I teach K-2 Structured Academics class at Rodriguez. My students are extremely capable of learning with the right tools in place. There are no limits to what they can accomplish. Not one of my students is the same. Many of my students have sensory issues that make it difficult for them to focus on their daily work. I look at each student and with the help of occupational therapy, provide tactile, auditory, and visual sensory experiences that will allow them to be successful in their learning environment. Sensory materials help my students focus and remain calm while learning, providing sensory items like weighted blankets, calming centers, calming lights, movement, and even yoga helps my students learn to self-regulate their own needs. Teaching students this important skill will allow them to be successful in all environments and become independent lifelong learners.
Rodriguez Elementary is blessed by the daily efforts of caring and dedicated professionals. Their willingness to explore new instructional strategies while sharpening current practice demonstrates a passionate commitment to all students. With the continued support of Seguin Independent School District and the school board, we thank you for helping us cultivate
So again, I just wanted to just give you that representation of how it really impacts across all classrooms, all students, and what a blessing it's been to have your support. As part of our School Board Appreciation Month, my team has put together and made for you a Matador sensory tote bag. So each of you will have your Matador sensory items. If you know me, I'm very Matadorish. Everything's yellow and black. So you've got your yellow and black. So when you're at work, if you're stressing out, you can take out your items. You have the fur and the leather from the Matador. You have a black and gold bag that you can push around. This has lavender. That's not very Matadorish, but it's my favorite scent. So. You can heat that up, put it around you, and just use that aroma to kind of relax. And then you have Matador beef jerky, and then your little shakes. So we hope that you enjoy this and that it serves as a reminder for you to have as our appreciation and the importance of working to meet all students' needs. And we thank you again for your support in that. So. I have some really good looking helpers out here, and these guys are representative of many of the students that were reflected of the classrooms in the video. I do want to say that, that one classroom where the trampoline and the pool is, that started out at the beginning of the year looking like a traditional classroom, and it has gradually changed and evolved to meet the needs that we saw coming up. So I just want to commend our teachers. They're amazing, and I want to thank them for their dedication and their commitment to working to do whatever we need to do to get it done. So I thank them so much. All right, so are y'all ready to take your things to your person? Okay, so they've been assigned and we've shown them your pictures, so hopefully you'll all right, okay. Y'all go ahead and grab your things. 2 hands if you need to. I know they're kind of heavy. Got it? Okay, you can walk up behind. That's okay. You can walk up behind, okay? All right.
Take care, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, boys and girls, for coming this evening and sharing these wonderful ideas with us. Thank you, parents, for bringing your students up here. And teachers, thank you so much for all the work you do for the students of Seguin ISD. That was pretty special. I was happy to see that. Moving on to recognition of the Seguin High School Competitive Cheer Squad. Mr. Holt.
Yes, Madam President, thank you very much. Dr. Gutierrez, fellow board members, it's my honor, community members, administration staff, it is truly my honor to present our high school student recognition this month. The young ladies we are recognizing this month are not only good students and great athletes, but they are leaders in our schools. They have the incredibly hard job of keeping spirits up no matter what is taking place, with the team they are cheering on. They are student athletes that put forth just as much, if not more effort than any other sport on campus. And until 2016, cheer wasn't even considered a sport at UIL. But 3 years ago, they started attending the UIL State Spirit Championship. That year they took 14th out of over 100 teams. The next year they scored third and they brought back the bronze medal, and we recognized them last year. But that wasn't good enough. These girls this year went out, left it all on the mat, and brought even more pride back to Seguin. At this time I'd like to introduce their coach, their head coach, which is Suzanne Zink. Our assistant coach is our first year with this team is Taylor Winters. Who, by the way, her sister was with this team for the past 2 years prior, so we've kept it in the family. That's nice. Their choreographer couldn't be here this evening, but her name is Stephanie Blackwood. Their managers are Cheyenne Nitch. She here this evening? It's here. And Brooke Pasante. And now, fellow board members, Dr. Gutierrez, administration team, and community, I present to you the 2018 Texas UIL State Spirit Silver Medalist, the Seguin High School UIL Competition Cheer Squad. At this time, I'm going to announce each one of these ladies' names. If they would step forward and give your cheer wave. Okay. Starting with our freshmen. I'm going to go in alphabetical order, girls, so you'll be ready. Vanessa Castillo. Aubrey Gonzalez. Camden Hope. Kenzie Clute. Lauren Colby. Megan Mahaffney. Eleanor Peugeot. Carrie Sanchez. Camille Serrano. Alexis Sefji. Haley Spicer. Paige Wilkie. Our sophomores consist of Nadia Moore. Courtney Owens. Ariana Pazana. Emiliana Pazana. Haley Thornton. Madeline Villarreal. Kylie Yomas. Did I get it right, Kylie? Yes. All right, awesome. That's a hard one to get, too. Juniors consist of Nakai Anderson. Araya J. Hay. Keegan Holt. Mata Perez. Morgan Schultze. Congratulations, Morgan, on your stock show achievement. Danielle Zhu. And this year, our 3 great seniors. Chloe Polanco. Courtney Schleter. And my dear Watson, Morgan Watson. And at this time, I want to extend my congrats to y'all for representing this district so well. I know that you get one shot, one day only, to make it work. There's no second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. You got to lay it all on the line one time and one time only. And y'all have done great things. And just a note to the community, they took second only by 0.15. And I ask that we actually show their final performance this evening. This was their final performance for the championship, for earning the silver medalist, and to me it's flawless. And I've watched a lot of cheer performances, and all the parents discussed this was a flawless presentation right here. Thank you, girls, for representing us well. Disregard the yelling man in the background. phenomenal performance. That was one part that actually, what was it? That was a fight song right there. That's one of three that they have to do. They have to do fight song, crowd leading, and band dance. And then they put them all three together along with the situational call from the announcer. And they have to do all that in a moment's notice. They've got 3 minutes to do it all. And this year, I believe y'all competed against, was it 69 total teams in the final? And out of that, placed second. And I can tell you, this town, this district, we're so proud of you girls. Wear those medals with pride.
And girls, even though many of us were not there, we watched it happen on Facebook because of the Holtz and Dr. Gutierrez. We all knew it was happening, and we were pulling for you big time, and we are so proud as a community. Thank you so much for your effort. Coach Zink, would you like to say anything?
Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you for sending in videos. We really appreciate it. The girls got to see that at our team meeting, and it really helped them. We really greatly appreciate your support for Seguin Cheer.
Next year,
We're very proud of it.
Mr. Pisani, do I need to put a work order in to get this removed?
All right, the bows are in the way.
All right, everybody on three. 1, 2, 3.
3.5, 4, 4.5.
Excellent. I'm good.
We're going to the basketball game. We're off the cheers.
Great job, ladies. That medal was kind of heavy.
And they had to wait a day or two before they could come back because we had ice right after they returned, right?
Yeah, we were. They actually rode back that night, and then of course got back here. And the next day, that was on Sunday and Monday, we were out of school for the national holiday. And then Tuesday we iced out, so they really didn't get any recognition from their fellow students until Wednesday. So it was kind of delayed, but we hope next year that they'll go even higher and bring back the gold. That's what their goal is. They've already said it. They've already been just talking about it. So
They're ready.
Very proud of them.
Well, thank you, John. I know you're very proud of that as well. So thank you for presenting that. All right, moving on, Dr. Gutierrez, we're going to have a presentation on campus distinctions.
I'm actually going to announce our recipients from here because I'm going to ask that the campus principal come up to accept the award. But first off, I certainly want to recognize all of our campuses for working hard during some times where there were some challenges that were encountered. But to be able as a district to double the number of distinctions is something to be celebrated, going from 8 in 2016 to 16 in 2017 to 32 for 2018. No pressure. But it is certainly something to be commended, and it certainly takes a village to make this happen, from our transportation team who pep talk our students on the way to school, to our child nutrition workers who put a smile on the faces of our students who go through the lunch lines, to the paraprofessionals who work just as hard as teachers to provide interventions to students, to teachers, to our principals, to the support that they receive here from Central Admin. So I am going to ask our board members to come up to help pass out the awards to our principals, and we are going to get a photo with our campus principals attaining the distinctions today. And just know for community members here, every year it gets harder and harder to attain distinctions as the standards increase from year to year. So to be able to double the number is again something to be proud of, and those standards do continue to increase. The first campus I'd like to recognize is Barnes Middle School for a distinction in social studies, and I'd like to recognize our administrator, Principal Michael Garza. And accepting the award for Barnes Middle School Assistant Principal, Mrs. Freeman. Our next campus I'd like to recognize is Jefferson Elementary School for attaining a distinction in English Language Arts and Student Progress. Congratulations, Mary White, Principal. Our next campus attained 5 academic distinctions, and that is Kinnicky Elementary School. And I'd like to recognize Cindy Moreno, Principal, for the following distinctions in Math, English Language Arts, Student Progress, Closing the Performance Gap, and Post-Secondary Readiness. Our next campus also attained 5 TA distinctions, and that is McQueen Elementary School. And I'd like to recognize Principal Yomeda Yeda for distinctions in Math, English Language Arts, Student Progress, Closing the Performance Gap, and Post-Secondary Readiness.
Then we won't look at them. Okay. Don't you? Congratulations. This is the teams. They're back there, right?
And finally, I'd like to recognize the following campus for attaining 3 academic distinctions, and that is Weinert Elementary School. And I'd like to recognize Brandy Bell for the following distinctions for English Language Arts, Science and Post-Secondary Readiness, and along with Brandy Bell is her assistant principal, Veronica Ramirez.
We're a team. Here we go.
And in case y'all haven't noticed, it is School Board Recognition Month, so I believe Dr. Gutierrez has a few things he'd like to say.
As many of y'all are aware, it is School Board Recognition Month, and there have been some posts that we've shared as a district, and if you have been paying attention, we are highlighting our trustees. So tonight I want to take this opportunity to thank our school board members for their leadership, guidance, and dedication to the 7,400 students of this district and the 1,100 employees of the district. And in addition to that, I believe when we met with our demographer, we serve a community of about 46,000 people. So that's a large number of people to serve. And I personally am grateful for their support and for providing a solid foundation for Seguin ISD. It's a pleasure to work with each one of you, and I look forward to our team of 8 accomplishing great things for the Seguin community. And we are looking forward to the new chapter with our strategic plan. And I personally am appreciative of your leadership and trust in what we're doing to meet the needs of the students in Seguin ISD. I could not have landed in a better place. These gifts from across the district serve as tokens of gratitude for your commitment and your sacrifice. And in addition to the gifts, we also have a short video that we would like to share with y'all.
Go
really touching. And really, I know I feel overwhelmed when I walk in this room every year and see all of these gifts from the campuses. So thank you so much for everything that you do for us. Makes it all worthwhile. Anybody else? I think you brought us all to tears, so. Oh my goodness, emotional night. Okay, thank you all. Okay, moving on to item 3, audience with the board. We do designated time for audience participation at the beginning of each meeting to hear persons who would like to desire to make comments. In accordance with board policy, those wishing to speak shall sign up before the meeting, stating the concern of the agenda item they wish to address. Each of these speakers is limited to 5 minutes. An audience of more than 5 persons shall be represented by one appointment, and the board shall not deliberate any subject that is not on the posted agenda. So we do have a couple of people who have signed up to visit with us this evening. First, we have Mr. Luis Moreno, who is interested in speaking to us about agenda item 6D. Mr. Moreno.
Appreciate your time. And before Ms. Guerra leaves, I just wanted to say that just 3 years ago, McQuinney was an improvement required campus. And for it to go in 3 years from an improvement required campus to 5 distinctions is outstanding. And that a big part is because of the leadership at the school and her leadership and the excellent teachers that we have at that campus, and clearly the high expectations that they set on all the students. So congratulations, Ms. Guerra, on that accomplishment. So I am here today, and it's a tough act to follow because, you know, there's so many great things going on. And clearly for you all as board members, this is, I think, what it's about to be in public service, right? I mean, it's seeing all of these things happening with the students at our schools. And I spent 5.5 hours today at a public school finance commission meeting in Austin, where we're also having these discussions about what are we going to do so that we can properly fund our schools. And it helps seeing all of the great things that are happening at the campuses, because again, we need to be able to do a better job to provide y'all with the funding necessary to continue making the progress in the state. But I'm here today to talk about item 6D, which is the overdrawn meal accounts, and I was always told you got to start and you got to finish what you start. So I think that today is an important day because, as I stated in my remarks when this item was first discussed several months ago, I explained what lunch shaming is. And I think that lunch shaming happens, and it happens at this campus, and it happens at campuses across the state of Texas. And when I made this remarks, I was not being critical of the work that is done by the food services staff. I was being critical of the policy that they had to enforce. And this policy was adopted years ago because it fell in line with USDA and TDA guidelines. However, those federal and state guidelines have changed, and so should our local policy. I asked this board and Dr. Gutierrez to keep the focus on the students and that we should not punish our kids for the behavior of their parents. The options that you are considering today are definitely a move in the right direction. Whether you adopt the $15 recommendation or the $30 one, this still allows for parental responsibility, but it gives our staff time to inform the parents about the delinquency, and it gives more parents time to pay. More importantly, our children will not be shamed at the lunch line. I also appreciate how quickly the food services staff and school administrators adjusted after we had this discussion in November. My sources at the schools informed me that students were being identified in advance and told they needed to get the alternative lunch. Delinquent account notes were being printed out by food services staff and given to teachers to send out to parents. And finally, there were some anonymous members from our community who made donations to some of our schools to pay off some of those delinquent accounts. This is what makes me so proud to be a Matador. Once again, thank you for your time and attention to this important issue, and this is just one. Next, I hope we can move to improving the recess policy, which I know we've had discussions at the shack, and hopefully that's going to be coming up to y'all in the near future. So again, thank y'all for your service, and congratulations on School Board Appreciation Month.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Right, we also have Dan Shepard, who would like to speak to us about the 2017-2018 calendar and also the food service item. Mr. Shepard, it's nice to put a face to your name.
Good evening. Part of what I wanted to address was the school calendar that was adopted for 2017 and 18 divided the semester, the first semester. If you take into consideration the Christmas holidays, Martin Luther King Day, the two weather days, my son and a lot of other students only had 5 days to prepare for exams for the first semester, which I think we could all take into consideration. That's not a whole lot of time to come back from a month off to try to take important exams. A lot of these kids are trying to go to college, get into college, and a lot of them are having a tough time doing it, and we didn't help them by splitting the semester. What I'd like to do is ask that you, or urge that you, no longer support a split semester on the beginning. I looked at 15 schools, 1 had a split semester. Everybody else had their semester ending before the Christmas break. I have a child in A&M who graduated from Seguin. The same thing happened to him, and he had a lot to say about it, and none of it was complimentary. So if possible, I would really like to ask that you not do that to the future students, even though my last one will graduate this year. The second item I wanted to talk about was the food service. I understand that we don't want to shame the kids. We want to keep some fiscal responsibility with the parents like it belongs. But a dollar amount is simply not appropriate to me. In other words, if you look at the document that was presented in the packet, it basically says 5 meals for full pay, 37 meals for free or for reduced. That's 7.5 weeks for those who are reduced in 5 days or 1 work day, 1 work week for everybody else. As a taxpayer and a full pay, I think that's a little inappropriate. So I would urge that you either do it by meal or that you come up with a sliding scale so that the number of days is the same. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to our reports. We have 1 report this evening, and it is from Communities and Schools to give us an update on what's been going on at the high school. Ms. LaGore.
Well, good evening, Dr. Gutierrez, President Jimenez, and the entire school board and community. I have the pleasure of standing up here tonight with representatives from the communities and schools. We have the site coordinators who are at the high school, because I thought, of course, the best information that you can receive is directly from the people who have been with us for, it's only been 1 semester, but it's been wonderful. Been forever. And we also have Susan Wetz, who's Chief Programs Officer from the Communities and Schools in New Braunfels, who is who we coordinate with. So they have a, oh, Chris Douglas is here. Oh, hello, Chris. And then Melissa Haas, who's the lead counselor at the high school, who, of course, has many wonderful positive things to say about communities and schools. And so we really want to just provide you all with information and express how appreciative we are and thankful for the support that you all have for this program and how it improves my day on a daily basis, my life on a daily basis. So they're going to go through a presentation, of course, then open to questions after that.
Hi, my name is Bethany Polk, and I am one of the site coordinators at the high school. Just to give a little bit of background information, my background is in social work. In the past, I've worked in both child welfare, worked with victims of trauma, and I've worked with communities in schools and their school districts as well. So very happy to be here in Seguin. So far, we've had a lot of really great reception to us and to the program. So we're just excited to be here.
My name is Cynthia Sparza. A little bit of background. I'm a licensed professional counselor intern. And before coming to Seguin ISD, I was at a private practice in Converse. And also before that, for 17 years, I was a journalist. So I'm kind of switching gears a little bit, but still working with the public and making sure that voices are heard. And so we're just kind of going to go over a little bit of the first semester, what we've been doing. So referral sources. So what ends up happening is we get referrals, and we get them from several different places. One of the first places that we get them from, and the main place that we get them from, are the school counselors. After that, we have a lot of teachers, especially since we've been in the schools for the semester. The teachers are now getting to know who we are. So whenever the students are coming to them, they're like, oh, let's get you to CIS. And then parents are another place we get referrals from. Once parents know about the program, they'll say, well, hey, is there any way that you can work with my child and be safe? And then the last place is the students. And the more students that come, students bring other students, and then also students come themselves. And so daily services. We have lots of students that come every day. So one of the main things that we do is supportive counseling and crisis management. With crisis management, that can be many different things. Big part that we see is suicidal ideations and anxiety and depression is another big one.
So moving on, basic skill building. Some of that is building self-esteem. Some of it is building organizational skills, communication skills, kind of all of those things that we think that, that sometimes we think that students should kind of naturally know. The individuals that who need extra support in that area, we're able to work with them to kind of really develop and grow those skills. Academic support. So some of that is actual homework completion. Of course, we monitor grades for all of our students that we case manage, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about case management here in a second. But we check grades, attendance, all of those things. We have lots of conferences with teachers, and so whether that's just one-on-one, us and the teacher, sometimes it's us, the teacher, and the student. So if there are behavioral or some kind of issues in the classroom, we, and especially if a student can come to us and say, hey, you know, I'm having an issue, which we're seeing more and more so. I'm having an issue, I really want to fix this, I don't know how, can you help me? And so that's been a huge progress kind of there. Some other things we do, we provide food, so whether that is connecting students and families with resources within the community or partners that can kind of help out there, or actual food on campus. So for our students who either don't have lunch money or just don't want to eat, or for whatever reason, we keep healthy snacks in our offices.
And then we also provide peer mediation. So if there are some students that are having a little problem with each other, we'll try to get them in and talk with either by themselves or if there's a group, we'll try to come to them. We also have worked with different organizations within the school, different social organizations, and for peer mediation, and it's out. And parent engagement and family counseling, this is another big one because if you have family engagement, students tend to do better. So we always talk with the parents as soon as we get consent, and then we also, if there's something that the children are talking to us about and they want to bring their family in, we will do that as well. And then the last one, college and career exploration. We are helping students that may, seniors that may not know where they're going yet. We'll help them try to find the path that they want to. So by the time that they graduate, they'll have somewhere that they're wanting to go. Because for some of our students, they're shy to talk to people, or they feel like they're not going to go anywhere. So we will do everything to give them the information that they need to find something that will work for them.
So we are able and we are available to work with any of the students at Seguin High School, which is actually extended to Mercer Bloomberg and to Burgess as well, because we know some of our students move back and forth, and so we're available on those campuses as well. But the difference between all of our students, anybody in the school, which we refer to kind of as others, is that those students, we do not have parental consent to work with them, and so we're not providing ongoing services. Those are any of our services that we provide that are crisis management. So of course, if somebody comes and they are having suicidal ideation or having some kind of mental health crisis, we're not going to tell them, oh, well, we can't work with you. We have to get parent consent first. So anybody's available there to come and work with us. And that's also for school supplies. Anybody that needs school supplies can come and get it. Clothing assistance, food assistance, all of those kinds of things. Basically our basic needs. Anyone in the school that either will self-refer, somebody else, a teacher will say, hey, do you have a jacket for this student? Blah, blah, blah. Anybody can do that. The case managed component of that is that those students are the ones that we work with on an ongoing basis. So those are the ones that we have parental consent to work with. The case manager's process kind of starts with, of course, the recommendation. We speak with the student, kind of go over what the needs are. Once we receive consent back, we create goals. We sit down and together, us and the students, we create our goals or what's our plan for the rest of the year. What do you want? And whether this is an academic goal or personal, professional, whatever kind of goals they have in mind. And then from there, we kind of figure out, well, what do we need to do to kind of reach these goals? What are the barriers to achieving your goals? And kind of go from there. So everything is very individualized. We spend a lot of time during this kind of this goal making process, really figuring out, really working with the student to see who they are, what they like, what they want, and kind of that's where we get a lot of the background information on our kids and kind of like what else is going on, so whether that's home life or whatever the struggles are academically. And then we of course provide academic support to those students every month, obviously, but we monitor grades, attendance, behavior, checking in with counselors, with teachers, with parents, anything there. And then we also, all of those students, we see at least twice a month face-to-face for direct services, which is kind of what defines case management as well. But oftentimes and many times, we see our students way more than 2 times a month. Do you have any questions on that part?
So far, we have 200 students that have received individualized services. 49 of those were crisis interventions. And currently we have 105 students who are currently case managed. And some of the students that were received individualized services some of them later became case managed. And so the number of hours of services that provided by CIS so far has been 529 hours of direct services for case managed students. And there has been 126 hours that have been provided to our other students.
So keep in mind on the direct services, that is not any of like those PEA requirements of like all their academic monitoring, their reporting, all of those kind of things. That is face-to-face time with individual students.
So some days, the full 7 to 8 hours that we are in the office, sometimes we're there 9 hours, but all of those hours are with students. Like every hour there's some student that is needing attention. And we are there, sometimes there are 2 to 3 students waiting for us when we already have students in our offices.
So some of the common issues that our students present with, we've talked a little bit about anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. We receive a lot of referrals for that, for those issues. However, of course, we know with those challenges come other kind of things that led into whatever the presenting concern is. So a lot of family conflict, and so whether that's working with students to process through, this is what's going on with my family, this is what I can change, this is what I cannot change, and really identifying what those factors are. Or, as we said earlier, sometimes it's actually sitting down with parents, sitting down with probation officers, sitting down with whomever is kind of involved and saying, hey, so we know that these are the challenges, we know the history, however, how can we kind of move forward? And so sometimes there can be resolution, but of course, you know, we've been here a couple of months, and this is something that's going to be a process, you know. There's that academic challenges.
With academic challenges, a lot of our students are having trouble, a lot of them with math. So that is something that we're looking at also. We're helping them find tutors. We're tutoring them ourselves. I have had to relearn math. I've had to relearn geometry and algebra, and it has been fun. But I remember, and I'm very happy about that. So I have been able to help them because for some of them, they feel like their teachers are maybe going a little too fast for them. And so I'm able to bring them into my office and let's look at this. Let's take it a little by little. And when they finally get it, they are so excited. So those challenges we also help them with. And then identity conflict.
So that could be anything just in transitioning and just kind of getting older and finding out who they are and what they like and not necessarily more so feeding into what their peers like and kind of like processing through those things and growing there. Some of it is related to gender identity, sexuality identity, and really supporting our students in whatever they need there. Also, of course, talking to always with counselors, with administrators, and with parents and everything there. And then in terms of abuse, we do anything from, again, processing through. Some of it is actually reporting, getting with the students if they want to come forward and do a police report in the instance of sexual assault, which we've had numerous. Any family abuse. So of course we are mandated reporters, so we are required to report any, just like any school personnel, to report any suspected abuse or neglect. But then any self-harm, any, and it doesn't necessarily have to be physical, but anything that's detrimental to the student. So whether that's high-risk behaviors and any of those kind of things, and kind of getting them to a place where they are no longer harming themselves or putting others in danger.
So there have been a couple of times that we have provided assistance outside of the high school. One such instance was at AJ Breesmeister, where we were able to provide grief counseling after the tragedy at Sutherland Springs. And then again at Jim Barnes when a teacher passed away during the break.
We work closely with Ms. Labor, and so she knows, of course, anytime that something happens on any of the other campuses and there's a big crisis kind of level thing, that we are more than willing to go over and provide support as needed.
So we are very grateful for the donations that are provided. We have, during the holidays, we were approximately $3,000 was donated to help a family of 13. And then we also had $600 in gift cards that were provided to help for other families.
So donated goods and services. So having Communities in Schools is a national organization, of course, and so some of that are entities or organizations or whatnot are willing to partner with us, either to provide goods or services, or to provide monetary donations so that we can link students to resources either within the community or just outside. It's a New Braunfels kind of area. Especially since our organization is based out of New Braunfels, there's a lot of support in that area. So we, with the Communities in Schools names, we are able to have vouchers, the VSP vouchers for free eye exams, glasses, all of those kinds of things, and everything is completely covered, all of the costs. Clothing vouchers, which Communities in Schools has a thrift store in New Braunfels, so we can, any students that need clothing supplies, we can connect them with those, we can give them those vouchers, and it can be used for students that, for anyone in the family of a student that we work with. So even if there are elementary students or their parents that need something, we're able to help out in that way as well. And so if there's a tragedy and a family loses their house in a fire, and they need goods for a new home, we can help out with those kinds of things as well. Payless Shoe Cards, we have a partner that has partnered with us to provide $30 gift cards, numerous ones. And so anyone that needs shoes, whether they're case managed or not, we can get those to them. Clothing, we have anonymous donors that donate huge bags of clothing, some of those really nice like dress clothing for job interviews and things like that. Also winter clothing, so scarves, hats, like jackets, all those kinds of things. And we have one of our biggest supporters so far has been First United Methodist Church and Pastor Ron. Are you guys familiar? Anybody? Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty wonderful. His church has decided that we kind of met and we talked about how we really had a need for feminine hygiene products and any hygiene products, and they have personally made it their mission that none of the students at Seguin High School should ever lack any hygiene items, and so they have donated them willingly, and their church has said, anytime you need anything, give us a call, and so they've been wonderful. We really appreciate them. So thus far, we have received almost 13 grand in in-kind donations, which is really impressive, especially that we're just getting started. And of course, that will only continue to grow as we continue to establish partnerships within the community.
Which is part of our next steps. So the next step going forward, we are going to have groups mentoring. We actually got an email today talking about how our first mentor has come aboard, and we're looking forward for them coming. And then also looking for more partnerships. And so, and a big thing that we're looking towards doing is providing transitional support for incoming freshmen, because we have realized that the freshmen, they're a little lost. So we're going to work with counselors and all the middle schools, and so have them, that way we can give them a head start for next year.
So for both the mentoring and partnerships, of course there has been a campaign and requesting individuals to volunteer to be mentors. If you yourself or if you know anyone that is interested in being a mentor to some of our wonderful kiddos at Seguin High School, we would love to have you or have anyone. You can refer them, connect with us, and then we will connect them with our mentor coordinator at our CIS office. And then partnerships, of course, anything kind of across the board, but really wanting to connect, that we can think about the top of our heads, really wanting to connect with a community sponsor that would be willing to either donate healthy snacks so that we can continue to kind of replenish those that stay in our offices, or that would give monetary donations so that we can purchase healthy snacks, because we can go through them pretty quickly. And then, yeah, if you have any ideas or anything there of something that you'd like to see, or if you've heard of something in another school or another district or anything, and you're interested in seeing if we can implement that here, we're more than willing to do so, and we'd love to talk to you about it. Do we have any questions?
Any questions from the board? We are very happy that you're here, and I know Ms. Haas is very happy that you're here.
Very happy.
Mr. Holt.
I did talk to a couple of counselors, and they did state that they were like ecstatic, and they were actually being able to do their jobs now that they're actually written for, because you are on board. I do have one question. If you could just, if checkbook wasn't an issue, how many more of your counterparts do we truly need to support? I mean, I know you're trying to reach as many as you can, but I mean, I know that there's some issues down at the middle school level, and then there's even more still at the high school, and I know that you're trying to reach as many as you can. I mean, how many do you think we're not reaching, I guess? And I'm not going to hold you to it. I'm just trying to, I'm getting ready. Budget's coming up, in a couple months, so.
No, for sure. I mean, I don't know.
You did have a glimpse at both middle schools.
We did. It would be wonderful if we could start implementing services at the middle school kind of level, and then there could be that continuation of services and that continuation of support. And especially of course, you know, the earlier we can get to them, the earlier we can intervene, the better off the outcomes, you know, and yeah. So I'm sure that all of our schools, I know all of the counselors would love to have us on campus. But if you guys were really, really thinking about it, I think starting with the middle school would be really wonderful.
Well, thank you very much for all you're doing. I know it's really touching some lives here. Thank you.
Thank you all for everything you do. Y'all have made some progress in a very fast way, and I appreciate everything that you're doing for our kids. Y'all are truly making an impact, and count me in for being a mentor.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Bethany and Cynthia. Thank you.
If I could just say something.
Oh, we'd love to hear you.
So to answer your question, without the checkbook being the picture whatsoever, I mean, the best way to do this model is to have full integration, just to put elementary on it. That continuation of services and monitoring the support with the most at risk is where the rubber needs to go. So what Bethany was saying is very, very sweet and politically correct. But if we're going to throw the checkbook out, that's the way to do it. If we're bringing the checkbook in, middle school would be amazing.
Well, we got to start somewhere. I mean, if you don't ask, those are free, right?
I'm asking. I'm asking. The other thing I would like to say is just thank you very much for your incredible support. I worked for communities and schools for 23 years. And in a lot of school districts, and there's a lot of support out there, but these two ladies have been overwhelmed with the support and the welcoming environment. A lot of that has to do with Ms. Labora, but then also Melissa and her team. They have been absolutely phenomenal. So just, I know you know what kind of people you have at your schools, but coming into this environment has been truly amazing. And I sit in their offices and I hear the stories of the kids that they're working with, but then also the support systems, and it's amazing. So thank you for providing that structure for all of your schools that you have in your districts.
Thank you so much. We're only halfway through the year. You're making great changes. All right, moving on, we have next item 5, which is the consent agenda. And here we have a list of routine and or recurring things grouped together under one action item. Do any of the trustees want to see us pull any of the things on the consent list? Okay, if not, do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Mr. Holt? I have a second from Mr. Jenkins. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Okay, passes 7-0. All right, moving on to our action items. 6A is consideration and approval for the Seguin ISD district to become a district of innovation, and perhaps passing a resolution. Mr. Schmidt?
President Jimenez, members of the board, Dr. Gutierrez, I'd like to take a little bit of time this evening to present the District of Innovation, or DOI, resolution information. Just a brief 6-slide presentation to see if we can get some resolution this evening and move forward. We'll kind of talk to that timeline as the presentation continues. A little bit of background information. We do have a House Bill 1842 that allows for the designation of districts of innovation. This is in Chapter 12A of Texas Education Code. And what this does is allow for a school district to create an innovation plan. There are potential exemptions from much of the Texas Education Code that really allows schools and school boards to work rather independently, collaboratively to meet the needs of our students. The next few slides are going to show some possibilities of things that we can do to help our students here in Seguin ISD be more successful. And then there's also some slides that talk about things that we can't do, and then a little bit of a timeline. And before I continue, this has become rather popular. Of the 1,150, close to 1,200 school districts here in Texas, we are now approaching about 700 of them that have gone this route. Many of them will go for 1 or 2 reasons, some will go for more, and we'll just kind of look at a little bit of what we might be able to do within the next 5 years. There's 4 bullets there that talk about possible benefits. Just let you read through what these possible benefits may be. First one really talks about less control coming out of Austin, out of the agency, more local control. Second one is going to allow us to compete with some of the private and charter schools, things that they've been able to do. We also have some administrative freedoms that charters currently have that we could possibly have as a district of innovation. And then we could also look at possibly zoning in on some areas where students aren't being as successful, possibly down the line, certain campuses, things like that. So these are, once again, possible benefits for going ahead and looking at this resolution, passing this resolution. There are a bulleted list. I'm really not going to expand in detail on any of these, but we will have additional flexibility with some of, possibly some or potentially some of the following items. You can see that school start date has become very popular. We've talked to a lot of citizens, a lot of campuses, a lot of individuals. We all know that the school start date piece basically says that we can't start school till the 4th Monday in August. With becoming a district of innovation, we could do what a lot of the surrounding districts have done and districts across the state, which basically we'll have some districts starting that 3rd Monday in August, some even as early as that 2nd. But what that does is to allow for students to really get out earlier at the end of the year after testing towards the end of May. Also allows for us to be able to balance by starting earlier, trying to make sure that we can get out prior to the winter break, have those semesters divided that way. When you looking at balancing instruction, there's quite a bit that we can do there. There's also a school end date. It has been in the past that you can just, May 15th is the earliest day that you could stop or end school. This just does give us some flexibility if we wanted to change that date. The 90% attendance rule, as you see, there's a ratio piece that looks at kindergarten through 4. We have that currently have the 22-to-1 ratio that we really try to keep as a best practice. We want to have that small class size to help our young primary students become successful. This gives you flexibility if there ever were an incident later, early in the school year or later in the school year, where towards the end there was a move-in, there was some things that happened, and you went above that 22-to-1. Right now, we have to report that to TEA. TEA does really nothing with that. They keep it on file. This would allow us to basically look at moving an aide in. This would look at, giving us the opportunity to not have to go ahead and hire a brand new teacher towards the end of the school year, which, you want to always hire the best, and you don't want to rush that process, and definitely want to try to go through that, during hiring season, find somebody that's going to come in and, give you the return investment, work with kids well. Site-based decision-making is a piece here. There's some discipline, flexibility. This deals a lot with alternative school. When students get in trouble over there, gives us some more options. Another one that's become popular is this teacher probationary contracts. Some districts are looking and saying, there's statute, or right now there's a practice in Texas where if we were to hire somebody at Seguin ISD that came from outside of Seguin, and if they had basically worked for as an educator for 5 of the past 8 years, and everything was good on their evaluations, they would come in with a 1-year probationary contract. Well, we might want to extend that. We might want to have a 2-year probationary contract, which would allow us to really be able to assess, to make sure that we had the best teacher possible as far as working with our students. There's appraisal requirements, teacher certification requirements. This is a big piece. Also, we have some districts that are doing things. They may not be able to hire people that have the proper certification according to TEA to work with dual credit, which is a master's degree or 18 hours in the field. Well, we might be able to find somebody that has close to that and with support still might be able to do a fine job and still be able to help us and our students get more dual credit hours. That's the sort of thing. Also, we can look at our CTE courses. We've talked about this one before, where we may have some people that, we have students that are interested in welding. We might not have a certified teacher, somebody might be at a different point, or there might not be people that are available. We might be able to bring in an industry professional. We might be able to bring in somebody that has experience, doesn't have the teaching certification. We could work with them, we could pair up with them, and then they could be working with our students to help them be successful as well. So really what this does is to allow us the flexibility, as you see there, really at the top of the screen. And please note, as noted there, this is not an exhaustive list. This is merely a partial list of possibilities that we could do to help our students become more successful. I did say that there were some things that we could do. There are also things that this does not provide for. So, and that's what this list is. It's not going to allow us to not have to teach the TEKS in the curriculum, the second bullet. We're not going to be able to get out of STAR because we think it's too much testing, the third bullet, all the way down the line to special education, bilingual education. There's still things that we are going to really be tied to that there's not really any sort of resolution that will provide any leeway in these items where it says limited flexibility. And then finally, we do have the process piece. So the first bullet really talks about, and we've already met that, the first bullet says that you really need to initiate this process, you need to have an acceptable performance rating. We are acceptable, as shown by the taper presentation earlier, so we've already met that. The second piece is occurring right now, where if the board were to initiate a resolution, or if we were to have a petition, then we could move forward. At that point, there's 4 bullets left. Some of these things, as you look at here in Seguin, we've been talking about this for a while, since the time that I came on, and I know that we want to be rather ambitious in our quest to try to do what we can to help support students. The board could hold a public hearing, or has to hold a public hearing to consider if the district should develop a DOI plan, or at that point simply decline it. If the board decides to pursue it, there must be a committee that would be appointed. After the plan is created, the final version of that proposed plan must be made available to the public for 30 days on the internet website. And then finally, what would happen, the Board of Trustees would notify the commissioner of the board's intent to vote or adopt this proposed plan. So TEA doesn't say yes or no. It's the board that has the power to do that. The board does inform TEA of this is what we want to do, and there is some correspondence that occurs. And we are really looking at making some things happen rather quickly on this one. Looking at trying to communicate, trying to work with the board on this one. We have the District Educational Improvement Council, who is definitely, it's a cross-section of community members. We have teachers, we have administrators, we have parents, we have business members, we have that group. We're looking to get moving in February. Actually have a date in mind of February 12th to be able to try to do some things as far as working to move forward with creating this plan. And as I said, I used the term ambitious earlier. A few days proposed, the 14th, or not Valentine's Day, but looking at February, the 13th, the 15th, and then really trying to do what we can to get that 30 days. I think by February 23rd, we could post the plan for 30 days, and then at the March board meeting, we could be ready to move on this. So that is, in a nutshell, District of Innovation. Proposal for a resolution. Does anybody have any questions on this? Yes, sir.
Mr. Jenkins.
What other districts locally or close to here have used this and are they successful in using this?
As I've looked, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at close to 700. I didn't see anything for Comal, but I did see Marion down the road. They're doing the calendar, looking at at being able to start earlier and end earlier. Navarro is doing it as well. And I just, at that point, really started looking around. I've got things just all over the state. I mean, Kaufman, I'm looking at Copperas Cove, just kind of, I've been looking at different things to see what they have been doing.
I believe San Marcos is a district of innovation.
Yeah, and if you all want to, anybody else wants to throw anything out over here, I know that it's exhaustive. Most of what I've seen has been looking at the probationary contracts. Most of what I've seen has been centered around looking at the ratio piece, and really that just getting started, that calendar option. The nice thing about this is that once it's passed, if we continue to be acceptable, it is a 5-year, basically, we're good for 5 years. And we have flexibility within that 5 years to pursue new initiatives and such.
So that was my next question, is if for some reason, if the district becomes unacceptable, what happens to the plan? Do you lose that status, and then that next year, does the district have to go back to a different schedule, or how does that work?
As long as we're acceptable, we have the ability to follow this. If we drop off,
what I'm saying is, yeah, if you drop off next year, then
we're not allowed to pursue.
And then you have to reapply.
We would have to reapply.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So it's not like you're banned for. Okay.
No, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Ms. Reel?
So is this a living document that you can modify throughout the year, or is it something that you do once a year?
So what we would do, and I haven't seen any evidence, I haven't read of any evidence about making amendments to it during the course of the year. What I've seen is that from year to year, people revisit it. And to be totally transparent, I would have to dig deeper for an answer for that one. What I've looked at is basically the steps that districts have gone through. I've looked at what districts are pursuing. I've looked at why they think that it will help their students, and exactly what it takes to be able to apply for this. I think that, generally speaking, you kind of take a conservative approach. Probably want to start a little bit where you think you'll get the most bang for your buck, and then be able to move into it. But I could follow up on that for you to see if we would have that. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Jenkins?
What do you consider the biggest obstacle on your end of getting this started?
It's really, I think that we have some inertia. I really don't see a lot. I think that we have the committee that it takes. We have community. We have teachers. There's really a lot with that calendar. There's a lot of people really wanting to try to
I think one of the things to be known is that the Teacher Communication Council has had a strong interest in this for quite some time. So they were quite pleased for a year, to be exact. They were quite pleased to hear that we were taking interest in this, and even more excited to hear about the very ambitious plan, because this would move pretty quickly.
This is very ambitious. That does concern me a bit. Now, the committee, who would be on the committee and how would it be picked?
So what I would propose would be that we could go with our District Educational Improvement Committee, which is 40 members. Right now, that already exists.
Okay.
So it's 2/3 of that is made of teachers. We have parents, we have community members, we have business members, school administrators. So we have a pretty good cross-section, and we've already met. We've been looking at the district improvement plan. This would really kind of go hand in hand with that. So
do you foresee with this committee just one meeting to discuss or try to hash out a plan, or a couple of meetings?
No, we would definitely have to have two meetings for sure. We would, and what we're looking at over there, is that the timeline? What we're looking at over there would be there'd be a February 12th piece where we would like to be able to have like a workshop sort of piece, something prior where we could meet to go ahead and give you, where you all would say this is something that we want to look at. That would be February 12th. We would hold a public hearing to determine whether the district should go ahead and adopt. On February 13th, we would really have that meeting with what they would call a DAC, or would be a district appointed committee, which would be the DEIC. We take Valentine's Day off. on February 15th, we would come back around with a second meeting for that DAC, and we would really continue to look at what exemptions we were wanting to do, how that would benefit students, look at pros and cons, and then we would come up with our draft innovation to present to the board. Basically, on the 16th, the DAC would have a finalized plan. Everything would be looking good to go. We would have a third meeting on February 22nd to be able to go and present the final innovation plan. We need 2/3 approval at that point from the committee to say this is something that we want to do. Basically, the 23rd, it could be posted. It would meet our 30-day requirement. March 27th, we could have the public meeting and present to the board for approval. And then if that were to occur, then basically what would happen would be the board would inform TEA that this was something that we would want to do. They would note that as early as March 29th.
Any other comments? Mr. Holt?
Yes. The one part that you just briefly touched on, but I learned about, I think it was 2 years ago at a TASB conference on District of Innovation, was the bringing in the outside personnel that are maybe licensed within the state, like an electrician or an HVAC tech or a plumber that has a license but doesn't have a teacher certification. They can come in and do a partnership with us, and that serves as a very key point, because us trying to bring back more CTE trades within our schools, and we built a high school that has a HVAC and electrical classroom, but yet we don't have any teachers to fill it because we can't get somebody out of the industry that wants to come in and take a pay cut basically to be a teacher. So it's nice that we can bring that in and kind of join together. That was one of the key points that I thought was really great. And then to touch on what Mr. Shepard said at the beginning was the starting date when the fourth Monday is the first day you can start. Well, in August it was the 28th. So I mean, it pushes you back, which causes you to have to make other modifications, and this gives us the opportunity to be a little bit more flexible with that. And so I think this is a very good opportunity for us, and definitely if you can stick to the proposed schedule that you have created for yourself, then I don't see any reason why.
Thank you, sir.
And I know that this is a big deal, and when districts move to District of Innovation, it's usually something that does get media attention, local media attention. And I know there can be a lot of anxiety with the very tight schedule, but just know that you can focus on just a few areas first. And again, in having gone through this in Plano, it was just a matter of looking at teacher certification, teacher appraisal, the earlier start date, and those were in the attendance. Those were the four. And then you can come back as a committee and revisit if you want to look into other areas. It was just a sampling of things that we could look at, but certainly not going to jump all in. Want to make sure to get feedback. Of course, there's already been feedback provided by the TCC, but get feedback from the DEIC and look at what will be priority and what will be presented to you all.
Mr. Flores?
Yes, ma'am. I think that's a good point. The fact that you're here about local control, giving local control back to your team and to the community and input. So with that, call for the questions and move for approval of the resolution.
I have a motion for approval.
Second.
I do want to say that when you look at the resolution that's in our board packet, this is a resolution to consider designation as a District of Innovation.
Yes,
So we're just moving forward and looking at it, and we don't officially do it until you present us with the plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Since this is a resolution, I feel the need to read it out loud. So, all right. So whereas Education Code 12A.001 provides that a district is eligible for designation as a District of Innovation if the district's most recent performance rating under Section 39.054 reflects at least acceptable performance, and that consideration of designation as a District of Innovation may be initiated by a resolution adopted by the Board of Trustees of the district. And whereas the Seguin School District's most recent performance rating under Education Code 39.054 reflects at least acceptable performance, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Seguin School District, by adoption of this resolution, initiates the process under Education Code Chapter 12A to become a District of Innovation. Be it further resolved that after this Resolution is signed by the board. A public hearing shall be held within 30 days to consider whether the district should adopt a local innovation plan for the designation of the district as a district of innovation, and that within 30 days of the public hearing, the Board of Trustees of the Seguin School District shall appoint an innovation plan committee to develop a local innovation plan or decline to pursue designation as a district of innovation. There are no further comments. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 6A. This is approval of the recommended update to board policy regarding the required level of fund balance of the general operating fund. Mr. Hilton.
Good evening, President Jimenez, Dr. Gutierrez, members of the board. What you have before you is a recommendation for board policy that would stipulate a required level of fund balance in the general operating fund. This is the result of some discussions and study that was done and information feedback that was provided by the board in December at the December board meeting. So the proposed revision to CE local, you'll notice at the very bottom is in blue the wording. That's based on the what I presumed I was hearing from the board, as well as collaboration with TASB's policy council. So they've gone through this to make sure that the wording is appropriate for what we think you were wanting. So happy to have further discussion if you'd like.
Ms. Reel?
I'm pleased that we're moving forward with this. The only thing that I would request is that it would, the policy be aligned with the GASB 54 wording where it states unassigned. So the district's unassigned general fund balance will be maintained to provide the district with sufficient working capital and margin of safety to address local and regional emergencies without borrowing. The unassigned general fund balance may only be appropriated by resolution of the Board of Trustees. So I would just like to see those two policies aligned with the same wording.
Would we need to come back with another proposal then next month?
If the board chooses to do that, yes.
Yeah, I would request that we come back and have the TASB review that, since that's required.
The policy as you see it now, TASB is saying that is appropriate wording.
Okay.
With all GASB, it's completely compliant. But you can change the wording if you want to make it read exactly as 54 reads. There's nothing wrong with that. But this is not compliant. In fact, if you look at the other districts that were in the study that we presented, I believe there were roughly 8 or 9 that were, their entire policy was presented. The wording that you see here is identical or very much like the wording in most of those others. But like I said, it's your decision, it's your policy. So if you'd like the wording to read exactly as was specified, we can do that.
Do I hear a motion to table this? Yes.
I move that we table this till just, and the reason, because this is more vague, it doesn't specify unassigned or assigned. And I would like to see it aligned with that policy.
Happy to do that.
Do I hear a second?
If I may, it's
Yes.
this would be a first reading, consider a first reading. Then upon your recommendations, then that can be brought to the board next month, and it would be your second reading. You do not need to approve it, because basically you're looking at the proposal for your review and giving more time, and then based on your comments, that can be updated. And a resolution can also be brought forward. In the past, there has been a resolution by Seguin ISD board of this language.
Okay. I have a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Well, that's what she just said. We don't need to table it.
We
It's
don't
the
need
first
to
reading
table it.
only.
This
That's
is
what I
the
was
first-
trying-
well, it's an
that's what I was
action
trying to
item.
read. But you don't have to take action upon it if you are going, if it's
To
a
have a
first
second
reading.
reading? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Then moving on to item 6C, the first reading and consideration of Texas Association of School Boards TASB Policy Update 109, affecting legal and local policies. This is a big one.
Yes.
Correct. Good evening and congratulations on Board Appreciation Month. Very well deserved, many hours of just volunteer time on your time for the benefit of the children of the city of Seguin. Thank you. So indeed, this is the first reading for the consideration of the policies. And if I may just read a statement that is there, and it's policies usually go through a first reading and comment process before they are adopted or revised. Local policies may be adopted or amended by a majority of the board at any regular or special meeting, provided that the board members have had advance written notice of the proposed changes. So you have that piece. It is quite lengthy because it is indeed, you're going to find that anytime that every 2 years, you're going to have something this large. Every time that our lawmakers meet, because they do make a lot of decisions across the board. So again, at your request also, we can just kind of a feedback on that workshop on the 12th. And if you have specific questions about any policy, then that certainly can be addressed. And also just to make a note that CO local, that was individually pulled out from the update 109, so there'll be more discussion and give you that flexibility in that case. Now, in this policy, you also notice that the members of the superintendent's leadership team, they have received the policies applicable to their function areas and have reviewed the policies with their staff as appropriate. So every one of the policies, they have been chunked and given out to the superintendent's team. Also, what you will find in your packet is you have task instruction sheets. Those are for you to notice what needs to be replaced, added, or deleted. And it's quite many of them. And we also look not only at the local, but we look at legal of anything that has been changed. Because then, as part of your duties is to make sure that those are then put into practice. And that our practices across the district are in alignment to what the law says. Also, you have a section of explanatory notes. And that one, I think, Mr. Amador, is basically what you were trying to get from the taper. Because it just gives you, and especially for board members, it tells you just a little bit about each one of the policies and pretty much explain to you what has been changed. So that if you read just those explanatory notes, it will tell you exactly what the changes are. And then if you want to have more information on that, you can then just make reference to that one policy without having to go to over 100 of them. Also, you have local policy comparisons in which it tells you what has been deleted, what has been added. So that gives you that information. And basically, again, this may be your first reading, or at your discretion, you can also vote to approve the changes as they stand.
Any questions for Dr. Gerardo? I assume we all took a lot of time this weekend to read through all these policy changes. They're quite extensive.
And with that said, Madam President, I do move that we actually accept this, instead of going on to a second reading, we go ahead and accept these changes as presented by Dr. Cordo.
Okay, I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Flores. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Approved 7-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to 6D, which is the first reading and consideration of Texas Association of School Boards TASB Policy Update 109 affecting CO local policy. And I believe this is leading into our mills.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. And so this was actually associated with Update 109, but it was pulled so that it could be discussed separately and given additional scrutiny by the board. We have provided two options based on information from our workshop and discussions therein. And so, again, this is first reading.
All right, I think we have the two options on pages 123 and 124 of your packet. Are there any questions for Mr. Hilbert? Ms. Reel?
I'm glad that we're moving in the right direction. I would just like to see us move a little further.
Put it closer to your mouth because I can't hear you.
I'm glad that we're moving in the right direction. I would just like to see us move it a little further in a more productive direction. I would like to add another option of the 30 days grace period. I mentioned this last time we talked about it. My reasonings for that are, to state again, some jobs only get paid once a month. Child support comes once a month. Social security checks come once a month. If a family becomes in the middle of the year, they become eligible for free and reduced lunch. That's a process, they actually getting to that family to fill out the forms and having the approval for the forms for them to become part of that plan. That doesn't happen overnight. How many days does that normally take?
Well, it's hard to say because we haven't, I suppose that
Well, I mean, just
would
like
probably be
on
more
an
appropriate.
average, so if a family's identified mid-year,
Perhaps Jacob Gelbach can give us an estimate on the time frame that might take.
Upon receipt of an application, we have up to 10 operating days to process an application. But as far as presenting an application to receiving it could vary greatly. I mean, if they process one online, then that can happen within the next business day. But in a time, in the middle of the year, if you get, we experimented doing something like that at Weinert and Vogel, where they had high full pay rates of children, and we sent out hundreds of applications, and we sent them home to students, and we received maybe just a handful, maybe 5 max. So we could potentially still receive some more, but after registration and really after October, they trickle in so few at a time that it could be hard to say. But upon receipt, we have 10 operating days of process.
so you're looking at 2 weeks just there by the time.
Correct. And it's
2 weeks from the time that you get the application. So
Correct.
that's, my point is that I would like to see it, the option of 30 days, just because there are situations where I think, I don't want our kids lunch shame for any reason. And I like the day as opposed to the amount.
If I could speak to that just for a moment, in having discussions again with TASB, the issue that comes into play is, and Jacob can speak to this too, he's more involved in the day-to-day operations, but a given student does not necessarily go through the lunch line every single day. In fact, many do not. They go when they want to go through. So a given student may overdraw their account by $2.80, and then they don't go through the line again for another 60 days or 2 weeks. It could be anything. But so when you restrict it to days, the implementation process is where the challenge comes in, because the manager or the cashier then has to somehow, and I'm not even sure that our point of sale system can do it, Jacob can speak to that, but they would have to assess when was the last time that student was overdrawn. How many operating days has that been? And so that therein lies the difficulty with the number of days, as opposed to the number of meals or a dollar value associated with meals. So you could equate it to 30 meals if that's what you're trying to do. And that's what we tried to do. That's why we give you what that equates to in terms of the number of meals as opposed to the number of days.
So that's what I meant, is 30 days that they've gone through the line. I'm not saying 30, one day they went here and they didn't go through it for another 30 days. I'm saying 30 days of them going through the line.
But if they only go one day every
No, I'm not saying
second
a
or
time.
third
I'm not
month,
saying
I mean.
I'm not saying a time frame. I'm saying, okay, this is one day they went through the line, and then the next time they go through the line, that's day 2, and then it could be 2 weeks later.
Is it
I'm
even
not
possible
saying-
for food services to track it that way?
Jacob, do you have
I would.
Like meals, here's 1 meal, here's 2 meals, here's
Right.
3 meals. That's what I'm saying.
The most efficient way for us to track it would be through a dollar value because our system only allows us to bring up students with negative balances based on dollar values. If needed, we could go through and find the full pay students versus the reduced students based on the charged amounts, and we could quantify it that day. But as an administrative standpoint, for us, it's more efficient to track it based on a dollar value.
Okay, but, and I think you just touched on it, but so your point of sale service does not delineate whether or not they're full pay or reduced pay, is what you're telling me?
It will, it's just the reporting itself will not allow us to pull it up based on that description. We would have to sort through the full pay and the reduced based on dollar amounts.
Because I mean, I kind of agree with this. I mean, you're putting full pay, you know, if we're talking about somebody only getting paid once a month and maybe they're still on full pay, you know, the dollar amount here is, I mean, what, $30 will last you how long at a full pay? 10 days?
So if you went to a $90 limit, you'd be 30 days, so to speak.
Right, that would be the way that we're suggesting, right. Instead of quantifying a time period,
right.
Which the original wording that was suggested, but that is difficult to implement, included a day count. And that's where a lot of people got into the grace period, and that's understandable, but implementing it is where the challenge is for districts. And so, yes, a dollar amount, and so you take that and extrapolate it based on your meals. If you don't want to do it for 10 meals, which would be $30, if you want to do it for what would be 30 meals, then certainly we can accomplish that, and that we can manage. So if 30 meals is what you're asking that we push through, then you know we can.
So are we looking at 30 meals? Or are we looking at 20 days being a month? That's
right.
Are you talking 30 operational days or a 30-day month? 30 operational days.
Are you talking about a month time frame, or are you talking about, because the school, you know, is only 5 days a week, so you're going to have 24 to...
Yeah, talking about
typically it's 20 or 22 days.
A month time frame, so that would be 20
to 22 days of equivalency. Okay, is there any way, and that's what I'm saying, you said earlier about 30 mil equivalent, or 20, in this case 22 mil equivalent, whether they're full pay or reduced pay.
Well, it's certainly possible. What we're trying to do is not put such a burden on the cashier that it starts to impact. We've got to run a lot of students through the line in a very short amount of time.
And what are we talking about as far as like the elementary? They're staffed with 3 food service workers?
It depends.
It'd be two food service assistants, 1 cashier, and the manager.
Okay, because I just want, that's something that we have to consider, because if we were tracking the days, then that's something that's going to have to be done physically, that's going to hold up a line when we're talking about hundreds of kids going through in a very short time.
I mean, are we trying to implement this at the time, or is this not a report we can run the day before the day of the service, lunch service, but do it in the morning so that they're aware and tag those names? Because, you know, ultimately this came about from lunch shaming, and you know, we're taking it was said that we took hot plates away and gave them the sack lunch, which is not really a sack lunch, as we found out. But if we delineate that they're actually over and they're supposed to get the alternate meal, then can we tag them at that point? And I noticed it was said at one point that we were doing, I believe Ms. Moreno made a comment that we had been doing a pretty good job of this before, you know, after it was brought up back in November, that we were trying to be proactive and catch them before they ever got to the line and hand it off to them. Again, say, hey, you're going to have the alternate meal today, you need to contact your parents, tell them, you know, or make sure they get this note. I mean, that sounds like it's more of a proactive than trying to put it down happening at the point of sale at the end of the line when they're standing there with a tray in their hand ready to walk out the door, and you're making the cashier be the bad person. Is there not a proactive way to make this happen? I guess is what I'm looking for. where you can hit it in the morning before it actually takes place?
I think it could be done, but as far as child nutrition sees it, it would be difficult for us to send, say, an employee to a classroom to inform the student in a tactful manner. So
I don't think he's saying.
I'm not saying send somebody, I'm saying, all
Right.
right, they're walking in.
So,
And I know these people at these campuses, they know their students. I mean, I sat there and watched the cashiers call these students by name. They know their numbers half the time. I mean, I hear them, oh, hey, your number's so-and-so and so-and-so. Plus, on your point of sale, if I remember correctly, they know the classroom that's coming through, and they know each name in that classroom. They pull up, for lack of better terms, I'm going to say, Miss Whitman's class. Okay? And it's got the students listed on there, and they can touch that student and make sure and type it in. If the student don't know their number, it confirms what have you. So I know that they're knowing their names, but if they're tagged in their point of sale, and I don't know if your point of sale can do that. I mean, I don't know what the exact program you're using, if it will allow you to tag it and you catch them before they come into the door, or maybe a note can be sent to the classroom to the teacher, and the teacher says, can be presented to them. I don't know. I mean, confidentially, whatever, however you want to call it. I mean, I'm not looking at shaming them in the classroom or lunch, but I mean, I'm trying to find a solution here,
Well, I think what we have is a legitimate road to a solution. And here's why I say that, Mr. Holt and Ms. Jimenez. We really do appreciate what you're saying. Right now, the procedure the way it is right now, and it is only a procedure, it's only been mandated to be a board policy as of Update 109. The procedure as it stood prior to all these discussions was 2 meals, $3 or $6, I believe, and $5.80 if I remember correctly. So it's 2 meals. That made it very difficult to be proactive not impossible, and as you say, many of them know their students, and they were able to be proactive. But there is so much going on in that lunch line, and so fast, that they just don't have the manpower. But here's what I would offer as why this works toward your goal, to at least some degree. And that is because you're giving more time to fix the problem. So it's no longer necessary for us to catch little Johnny because oh my goodness, he's 2 meals over. He's got 20 meals. We have things that we can do, and even Mr. Lewis, he can talk to you about some things that the technology department is working on to reach out to these parents, and so we have more opportunity. We don't necessarily have to. And
I'm sorry, Mr. Hilberg, and I mean what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I feel like we're moving into the operational side and moving away from just talking about the policy,
Gotcha.
Which is what is needed. Okay. We need to adopt. And another thing to think about is we also want to consider if we continue to raise that from 10 days to 20 days to 30 days, is that going to get the parent more in debt? Or is that going to be a decision that we're going to need to make, because we'll have to make it as administration to swallow that cost? That's another consideration. And again, I want to point out that we're not talking about kids for the most part who are kids who we are concerned about as far as those who come from poverty, who need the nutrition. They qualify for free lunch. We're talking about kids for the most part whose parents forget to give them lunch money at times, although there are some unique circumstances that arise when something changes at home. And I think that I think after this discussion started, I think our folks on the campuses are doing a much better job of intervening. So I certainly want to give credit to the folks who are already doing a good job, but are doing a far better job. What we really need, because I feel like this can go on for months, and we're going to be in June and never have come to some type of agreement, is we need really some clear guidance from the board as to the direction that we need to go, and really just focus on the number of days or the dollar amount, because right now we have an interim decision that I decided on for our students, but we want to make sure that we're taking care of the needs of our kids.
Mr. Flores?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Jimenez, from our workshop, I know we discussed, I was in favor of 5 days, and then there was discussion about 10 days. So I know it doesn't say on here, and then there's $30 limit and all, but I'm still recommending that we go to the 10-day, whatever equivalent that was from our discussion. And then we can that gives the opportunity for administration to review as time goes on, and if it needs to be bumped up, then
Right.
we can do that.
So you're saying we put a policy in place and see if it's
Yes,
working?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And what we need to do is develop procedures for it, but we can't develop procedures until we have a policy that's adopted. Once we have a policy that's adopted for a certain time frame, then we can develop a plan that's within a 2-week time frame, month time frame, and that's what we are tasked to do according to the policy, but we can't do until we have a policy adopted for CO.
Mr. Holt?
And I'm supportive of the 10 mil equivalent wording. The equivalent wording is I think, the key words there, because it would apply to whichever. I know it's a little bit more work on the administrative side for the food service, but I do agree with the wording to be a little bit better for that, and a little bit more to where it's just across the board, equal across the board.
May I ask, so does the option, the second option there, that's what that attempts to do?
Correct.
That gives you 10 full pay meal equivalents at the secondary level. You have a different pricing structure at elementary and secondary. You could have 2 different rates if you'd like, but again, TASB was working with us to try to implement something that is administratively efficient. So this was what the result was. But this would be the 10 meal equivalent, that second policy.
Right, and I think we'd have to reword it, I think is what Mr. Holt is saying. So it says, shall be allowed to continue to purchase meals for up to a total of $30. So we would change that for purchase up to 10 meals.
Okay,
a total
so
of 10 meals.
then the challenge, if I may, and I don't mean to belabor this, but it's a challenge because breakfast is a different price, and it's free if you're at elementary, but not if you're in secondary. And it's so when you say you want 10 meals, that's where it really becomes an administrative nightmare for the cashier, because the cashier has no idea how many meals got you into this particular debt.
I see what you're saying with that, okay.
And that's why we came with the dollar amount, because that was kind of the guidance that we were provided during that workshop because of the breakfast and lunch and the different pricing. However, whatever the desire of the board is, we will go with, but that's why we ended up with the dollar amount today, because that's where we were guided to, and so that's why we came with the dollar amount.
Ms. Reed?
Okay, so that just, I hadn't considered the high school where they're not getting a free breakfast. So that just makes me even more than I would like that extended to a larger number, because because they're going to run, if a high school student is getting breakfast and lunch, they're going to run out really quick. And so that doesn't give much time to be proactive to get that money from the parents.
Well, what you're also saying there about taking it to what you would consider to be a $90 allowance would put the some kids where they would not pay all year, because that'd be at 100 or 225. Is that correct? Right? Would I be correct with that? According to this, 225 reduced pay would be equivalent to $90 with reference to what your calculations are on here.
Pay rate.
So I mean, how many school days do we have? 186, I think it is. I mean,
Well, I would hope that we would have things in place, and I think we already are getting things in place to be more proactive to get the parents to replenish those meal accounts.
but the policy is not going to kick in any administrative any administrative items until that mark is hit. So that's what they're trying to set in. So until that mark is hit, they're not going to go in and say, okay, we need to make sure that they
Well, I
do.
think
That's
if you
what.
have a student that's overdrawn
I think the $30 amount, which is a 10 full pay or 75 reduced, I mean, that gives them a couple weeks, and then you're going to initiate a policy that will then further, you may have, if once you talk to them, may have an additional 2 weeks. And I don't know, we just need to set a forth policy like Dr. Gutierrez says and move forward with it. And I think we're spending a whole lot of time on this, and it's, now that we understand all the semantics about the $30 compared to 10, and I understand, what Mr. Shepherd said, to make it a quality, I see the difficulty in your point of sale service not being able to handle that information. I think, if we move forward with this and keep it like it is right here, and then try to set forth a policy to
and just keep a close eye on it.
Just keep a close eye and start doing some administrative work on it.
If we, in our weekly updates, could be like a campus by campus report.
We could do that. I'll call for the question.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Flores did.
And
Any
so,
other discussion? We're going to move forward.
my motion would be to accept the $30 full pay, or $30 total amount of delinquency before.
So the second option.
Second option, yes,
Second
option number 2. I'm
So we
looking at
have
yeah.
a motion to accept
So yeah,
the
proposed
second
exhibit
option.
number 2.
Proposal number 2. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Who's that? Mr. Flores, all right. All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-1. And I would like to see this, as soon as you come up with policies to try to implement this, we need to see some type of a monthly or perhaps weekly further down the road, just report on what's happening at each of the campuses. All right, thank you. All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher.
All right. Let's see, moving on to 6E, which is approval of donations that have been received at the district through December 2017. Dr. Gutierrez. And Mr. Hilbert.
Well, we'll both take on this one, and what we have here is a policy CDC that states that any unsolicited gift that the potential donor has expressively made conditional upon the district's use for a specified purpose, or any gift of real property shall require board approval. This has not been a practice of the district recently, and so being that this is the first time that we're introducing this agenda item to y'all, it is here under action. Otherwise, you typically find this, and my recommendation would be to place it under consent. And so we have our first report for the approval of donations received through December of 2017.
So moved.
Is that Mr. Holt? Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Holt. A second from Mr. Amador. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I do have one concern about this. I'm reading over this, and I noticed that the Band Boosters is providing a supplemental for the color guard. Do we not have that in our budget for an instructor for that particular fine arts program, or I mean
the arrangement apparently took place many years ago,
and that's something that we've already had some my leadership team, we've had some discussions on.
Okay, so you're addressing that. Okay, well, I mean, other than that, that's the only really concern I had. I don't understand why the Band Boosters have to pay for a color guard.
For years, yeah. And she does work very hard. She, works with all of the students during competition, during football season. It's a lot of work. So any other questions? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. All right, moving on to item F is to consider appointing a budget committee for the Board of Trustees, and is asking that the board president appoint a budget committee. Last year I had appointed Ben and Amador and Elena Real, and I believe we had asked Mr. Flores as well, but he wasn't able to make it. I would like to appoint those same 3 individuals if everybody's in agreement. All right, everybody is. Any questions on that? All right, can I hear a motion? Ms. Real?
A motion to approve Motion to approve the appointing of the budget committee for the board of trustees.
Okay, and that would be Ms. Reel, Mr. Amador, and Mr. Flores. I have a second from Mr. Amador. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. All right. 7-0. All right. Moving on to item G. Approval of the Transportation Department parking lot repaving. This will be Mr. Hilborg, Mr. Pizana, and is he still here?
Mr. Pizzagna, yes,
Oh, there
and
he is.
as well as Mr. Miranda.
And Mr.
They
Miranda.
are.
All right. Go ahead.
It's something that needs to be done desperately. Mr. Pizzagna can attest to that. So we're happy to answer whatever questions you have.
I make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Ms. Reel, you have a question?
Well, whenever did you consider, or was there a reason why the sidewalk didn't go across the field?
I know we're looking at 6G right now, the parking lot for the Transportation Department. So any more discussion about the transportation for the bus transportation?
Yes, I did have one question. And I know, Mr. R.L. Rhodey has done a lot of work here in the city recently and has done some really good work. And, I've driven over his roads that he's repaired. But will this inhibit normal flow of our transportation of our buses getting out and so forth? Or do you expect it to cause any delays or storage issues or anything like that while he does it?
No, sir. No, I don't. Back in 2004, that's when we actually did the first asphalt parking lot there. What we did during that time, we moved all the buses over during the summer, mind you, to Oak Park Mall and some also at Golden. Okay? It worked perfectly, and we did all the work during the summer. We waited until after summer school was completed. And so we had no problems, so it worked out great.
Is that when this is scheduled for? Or are you going to try to do that again during the summer? Or are you going to try to do it during spring break? I mean, I don't know what the timeline is.
We looked at spring break, and I don't think we can pull that off during that time. So we're going to wait till the summer.
Okay.
And there's some things we've been looking at, like maybe double stacking on one side, get one side finished, and then double stacking the other side. So the job can possibly start during June. So we're talking about it.
With no further discussion, I have a motion and seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item H, approval for Jim Barnes Middle School Sidewalk Expansion Project. Gentlemen.
I think I probably should bring Mr. Pizzagna back up.
Okay, thank you. I think Ms. Reel has a question for you.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, by the way.
Good evening.
What was the question again?
I was just curious why the sidewalk goes all the way around and not a more direct path to the kids.
What we were trying to do, because there's some ADA areas already in place there when Barnes was built, and we were just trying to tie in to that piece. And because if you notice, if we go across, there's a walking track there, and we didn't want to disturb that walking track. We know the students use that walking track a lot, and some of the community members, so we were trying to stay away from that area. One of the big reasons why we need that sidewalk is, I don't know if you've driven Barnes Road, I don't even know the name of the road, but the district actually owns that road, and it has that S-type curve there.
Is that Carrillo? Is that
No, yeah, it
goes by the football field, in between the football field and the basketball court.
Okay,
It goes
that
by
was
the
owned by the
apartments.
district.
Right. And the issue was when
It floods,
the apartments were built and then the housing development that went up, we had a lot of students walking. And they were walking on mud, and with that S curve there, we were really concerned about the speeds of the vehicles. I met with both principals at both campuses and APs as well, and we talked about some things to try to slow them down. We actually installed some speed bumps on that road. It helps, it really does. But if you drive that road and you see the sidewall of tires that hit, it's really dangerous for our little ones walking around. And we're also, the city has actually, there's a cul-de-sac that's right behind Barnes, where that's where we're going to do the tie-in. So the specs are exactly as the city specs. And that's where we're going to tie in with the city and also by the apartment complex as well. So instead of the students having to walk all the way around through the neighborhood, you know, they'll simply come in through the cul-de-sac, we'll make the tie-in, and the same thing on the other side. So that's why we didn't just go right across the field too. Just give you a little history.
Like they were gonna just, because it just walks straight across from you. And I don't know if this program still exists, but when I was looking it up, Texas has a program, Safe Routes to School funding. Have you heard of that?
Yes, I have.
Does that still exist?
It's changed the name. I can share with you, numerous of years ago, I worked with the city of Seguin with Safe Routes to School. I worked with Pamela Centeno. We were able to get a grant for the sidewalks that went into place at Potline area. I believe at the time, and it was years ago, but it was probably around the $800,000 mark. But that was with the city and also with the school district working together. There was a lot of data that we needed to put together, which we had no problem. We were actually after Potline, Weiner, as well as Jefferson, but we received the Potline one. So, but the name's changed, and I don't know if it still does some of those things. But what I can do is get back with Pamela and sit down with her and see if there's any other program.
Check into this to see, because it, when their site said that it would be funded by them.
Sure.
We could get a grant for it.
Or for future projects.
Sure.
Well, I don't know that the city of Seguin is working real hard to add additional sidewalks.
Throughout the
They're
city.
doing a lot of modifications on each road as they repair the roads. They're going back in and adding sidewalks. So I know that they're trying their best to make that a more safe journey around town as well. So anything that we could do as far as a district to help around our schools would also be nice. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Any further discussion?
Exactly.
If not, do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Mr. Holt has motion. Do I hear a second? Second from Mr. Amador. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 6I, the approval of the purchase of a concert piano through the Buy Board Purchasing Cooperative. And I believe we're going to be hearing from Mr. Lewis, Mr. Hilberg, and Mr. Bewley.
Mostly Mr. Lewis and Mr. Hugh.
Okay.
Unless you don't have any questions.
I think there's some questions. Yeah.
Ms. Nunez, Dr. Gutierrez, board. Tonight we've come to the board to ask for approval to purchase a concert piano for our state-of-the-art Performing Arts Center. The option that was presented to the board tonight was based on the recommendation, based on the size of our auditorium. The size of the piano fits this size of Performing Arts Center. As you know, a piano that creates sound, it has to move air. In order for that sound to travel and make its way to all spaces, it has to move so much air, etc. We're trying to be sciencey about this. Mark and I, we had this whole science conversation about this.
It's only going to sound good if it's the right size piano.
Right, and so that's why that piano was recommended for that space. We found a piano that normally when you purchase, it's usually built to order, kind of like your hamburger at Burger King there. You order it, they build it, you go test it out. We watched the video how Fort Worth ISD, they even have they sent a whole team up to the Steinway factory, and they tried out pianos and et cetera. It could be a whole process. But we found a model that was still on the floor, which is pretty rare. It was available at a discount for short term, and so that's why we came to you with that recommendation. We felt like it was a Very nice piano that meets the specifications for the Performing Arts Center, that is respected, and it's probably going to outlive all of us in this class, in this room today. It'll still be around when we are not. Sorry to say that. But, it's a 50-year plus instrument, so that's why I was brought. I'll be happy. Mr. Bewley's ready to answer questions. He's got all specifications and things if you like to have some questions.
All right, any questions? Mr. Rowe?
I don't have a question. I do have a couple of statements to make. I've talked in length with Mr. Bewley about this back when we were actually on the construction committee. When I was on the construction committee about the rooms, because we actually have a room designed within the back to store it in. That's ideal for the actual storing of this type of piano. I know that Mr. Bewley would have loved to have the bigger one. I know that he spoke of that, but I was like, man, dude, that's a far cry. But I do believe that it was actually, this was on his wish list, and it was he gave up a few of his want list to get this item approved for the bond, and it's included in the bond funds. I know that there was some concern about us being over on budget, which is still to this day is not true. We're actually within budget on the school. But this is, again, is a bond item that's already been budgeted for. We've already got the funds are there to be used for it, or set aside off that bond item. So, and I can see it only benefiting our performing arts programs even more. I know we have several students that are outstanding pianists, and could even see maybe developing a few concert pianists along the way as well.
Well,
that would be a hope as well.
You know, our fine arts program is one of the best in the state. I think we all recognize that. And I have sat through many a concert and competition at other campuses throughout San Antonio, Austin, throughout the region, and we've never had this opportunity before, and I think it's time for us to shine. I am a little concerned, though, about the piano itself and who's going to be playing it. Do we have piano classes? Do we have a piano teacher? Will it be played by students?
Anything like that right now? Sorry. One of the rooms that was built into the new Performing Arts Center is a electronic piano lab classroom that we haven't funded the actual piano lab itself yet. That's to come. But at this point, the piano is for immediate performance by accompanists for our choir program. We have almost 500 students in our choir program throughout the district. All those choirs now will perform at the Performing Arts Center in the fall, at Christmas. There are pre-UIL concerts and there are spring concerts. So that's 12 performances for those groups. And those groups need a piano. I know several of you have been to our choir concerts this year at the Performing Arts Center, and we have a state-of-the-art facility, and when you go, you're hearing the accompaniment by an upright piano that's about 30 years old.
Right.
Our average age of our pianos in the district right now, which are all uprights, is 37 years old. And so we did an inventory analysis with an expert this past year and got those numbers. Our oldest piano is a converted player piano from 1927, and our newest ones were purchased in about 2004. So we have a state-of-the-art facility, and to be able to benefit completely from that state-of-the-art facility for our students, for our community, we need to have it outfitted with a grand piano. That was part of our design specs in Chapter 6-3, was to have an owner-financed, owner-installed grand piano. We have the piano room set up for that with its own HVAC system, and that room is about 18 by 9 by 13 with an angle on the top, specifically designed for the grand piano. And so we are asking that you all support that purchase at this time with those bond funds.
Questions, Mr. Jenkins?
Is this something we can lease instead of buying it?
Well, if you lease it, the lease cost to, for example, rent it from Steinway of San Antonio, for them to bring it out, set it up, take it down, take it back, because they're not going to lease it to us for months at a time. If they do that, it's going to cost more than purchasing it. So they would have to do that every time we did a concert, and that's That's just not, in my opinion, budget-wise.
Do you have any idea about the money-making capability of this, having the piano here?
Well, I can tell you right now, we have several partnerships that are already established. We already have 3 weekends set up with the music festival company out of, actually 2 different companies, one out of Lubbock, one out of San Antonio, to host music festivals at our space, which are competition festivals for high school groups. And one of the things that they require for the space that they're attracting bands to come to and perform is a piano, and a nice piano, not a...
So how much revenue are you looking at with that?
Anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 per event, and most of that is donated to the fine arts program at the high school. And that's how we set it up right now. It's a moneymaker thing for our groups that would be working that festival.
And how much does it cost to maintain a Steinway piano?
I would say that if you maintain it at optimum level, you'd be tuning it twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. With total voicing, that's $500, and I would try to put that in our fine arts budget to maintain it. But the tuning of a piano would be the same if I was trying to upkeep an upright, or if I'm trying to upkeep a grand. We still have to get it tuned twice a year in order for it to be in tune for the performing groups that are performing with it. If it was an elementary school and it was just in a classroom, we'd get away with once a year. But with performing, being an accompaniment for the performers and for the performing itself, it would need to be done twice a year. But it's only going to be hacked on, played on during performances and the rehearsals leading right up to performances by either the students that are supposed to be playing it or professionals. It's not going to be a thing where you can walk in and some kids going ding, 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 ding. It comes with a C-clamp lock with a key, so it would be locked up. It'd be locked up in the room until it's time to perform. There's a specific way to roll it in. There's a specific way to roll it out.
Who would be in charge of moving it from point A to point B?
Our theater technicians and myself.
Okay.
Are all adults.
All adults?
All adults, yes.
And exactly where is this room?
The room is on stage right.
Okay.
So as you're looking at the stage, it would be your left, house left, stage right. And that room has double doors.
It open wide,
It
okay.
opens up 6-foot opening, 9 feet to the other side. You rotate it and slide right in. And like I say, it's HVAC ready, and it's just waiting for the piano. Right now, it's storing janitorial equipment.
Oh. Well, I do know those of you who were fortunate enough to go to the Christmas band concert last year, it was the concert right before the band went to New York. There was a concert piano over at the church, and I think for many people in the city, that was the first time they'd actually heard a concert piano and a pianist, an extraordinary pianist at that. But I think it did put a big impression in people's minds, and I've heard people talking about that concert for months and months. And will the band itself be able to incorporate piano? I know they have keyboards now.
Yeah, for example, this past weekend, we had the Region Band Clinic concert over at Smithson Valley, and 2 of our 11 percussionists that made the band, 2 of them had to play piano on one of the pieces, Hypnotic Fireflies by Brian Belmontes. And so we had 2 of our kids up at the piano playing while the band was playing. So, you know, those 600 to 700 students we have in the band program all will benefit again from being able to play repertoire that includes piano as part of their instrumentation. So those students will obviously benefit. Again, our choirs will benefit from having the accompaniment on a quality instrument so they can sing better. Getting back to your question about other moneymakers or other partnerships, the Mid-Texas Symphony does a children's concert for our students, and they do it over at Jackson Auditorium. Why? Jackson Auditorium PLU has 2 Steinway D grand pianos, and one of them was in the Jackson Auditorium. We would love to host the Mid-Texas Symphony on our campus, bring the kids to our facility versus taking them to the college. We have the space, we just don't have the instrument. And last year's children's concert featured a concert pianist playing solo in front of the whole group. So things like that. There's a new group called the Texas Concert Opera Collective. And it's a group of opera singers from the Austin and San Antonio and New Braunfels area that are wanting to perform opera for our region. And they've come to me asking if they could be housed in our facility, which would be 4 concerts, 2 concerts each time, 4 times a year, with dress rehearsals that would be open to the students at Seguin and surrounding areas. They're going to come in and enjoy opera for free while they do their dress rehearsal. Obviously, they're drawn to us because we have a beautiful facility, and they know that there are plans, hopefully, to have a piano. They're not going to come and sing if we've got the upright. It's just not going to be part of it. They're offering to give us street concerts, and then they're offering a 50-50 split of all proceeds from their concerts, ticket sales on those 2 nights. So that's another opportunity that hasn't been approved yet. We haven't talked business with the business office, but it's in the formation stages. So those are just things we're trying to up the game for our fine arts students, for our community, for our district, and I've been here 11 years. I've seen many of you as band parents current and former, board members for, was that really right, 19 years? That's amazing. But I've been here 11 of those years, and this board and this administration has always supported fine arts, which is why we are successful. So with that, I will congratulate you for your January board recognition and answer any other questions you may have.
Mr. Jenkins?
It's not a question, it's more of a statement. I really appreciate the fine arts here, but I can't support the $134,000 piano. They have elementary schools that don't have whiteboards in their classrooms. And there's all kind of things that need to be done at the elementary school level that need money too.
I completely understand.
We need to impact more kids as opposed to a select group of kids. And a way to impact more kids would be to have the finest quality educational tools in the classroom. Not $164,000, $134,000 piano. Thank you.
Okay. Absolutely.
Ms. Reel?
Is Steinway the only brand of grand piano that was
Oh, no, ma'am.
considered?
No, there are other bands.
I mean,
Yamaha. There's Yamaha. There's several German companies that put out pianos. But if you would look online to do research on that, all of the pianos new retail are 180, 200, 250,000, 300,000. I mean, there's a variety. Steinway's not the Lamborghini. It's a really good American-made product that we'd like to have for our thing. I didn't go out and say, oh, I've got all the money in the world. In fact, this piano at $134,000 retails this year for $178,000.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, I'm just curious if I understand the size of the piano is important to the pack.
Correct.
I'm just curious as if you looked and bid out just a grand piano, or were we just looking at one specific piano?
We were looking at one specific size, which is a 9-foot because of the size of the space. That's what we looked at. I did my research, and then I sent it out to bid at both Alamo Music in San Antonio, which does the Yamahas, and the Steinway, several Steinway locations, and they all came out within, $5,000 to $10,000 of each other. And at that point, I'm looking at service after the sale. I'm looking at the upkeep. I guess that's still service after the sale, and the reputation and the craftsmanship. I had the opportunity to go to the Steinway factory myself. Last spring, my son was fortunate enough to play in Carnegie Hall, so I went up there last spring and I was able to take a tour of the Steinway Gallery, and each piano is, all 12,000 pieces are hand put together on those pianos, which is why they last so long. The San Antonio Symphony bought their piano in 1929, and they retired it in 2010. So if taken care of, which you have already done, you've already done that by providing that room. If you properly take care of it, it will outlast the building.
And if you break, I just broke it down, just thinking, trying to figure out, justify the yearly expense here. But you're looking at 135. If we take a standard years of 50 years, and you're looking at $2,700 a year that we actually account for this. Now granted, you don't get to spread that out over the 50 years, but
We wouldn't be able to lease
basically.
it, we wouldn't be able to lease it the number of times that we'd have to do for that.
Exactly. That's what I was kind of wondering.
Ms. Real?
You said we have a room for a piano lab, but it's not, there's nothing in it?
Right now, it's just being used as a music classroom for music theory class. It's not, we don't have the 15 electronic pianos with a teacher piano area and all that needs to go into it. We will move towards that if we are allowed periods in the school day, so students can take that class, and if we can have a teacher to teach it. And right now, both of those are not in the current plan.
Do you have any sort of, like a ballpark figure of what it would cost to outfit that with the keyboard?
I have to do a little more research. I hesitate to call on my expert in the audience, but it's digital pianos, obviously. They sit on desktops, and I could find that out. But again, that's something that would be a next step, in my opinion. The piano in the pack needs to be the priority over that, because more kids are being affected by the performances in that pack than would be the 15 students that take the class. But I'm not saying it's not a priority, or else I wouldn't have suggested we have that room built in the choir room, which is where it's at. I mean, I'm all for it, but step by step.
Any further questions or comments? Mr. Hilberg, since the funds are appropriated through the Capital Improvement Fund, we couldn't just take that $135,000 and flip it and buy something else with it, could we, for a classroom?
You could use the $135,000 for anything that was under the original proposition, so.
For the high school?
Or you could look at it as money that would come back to the general operating fund and spend it through that. So those options are available to you.
All right, no further discussion. Do I hear a motion?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Beal.
So moved.
And I'll second.
I have a motion from Mr. Holt and a second from Mr. Flores. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Vote is 5-2. All right. And it passes. All right, moving on to item J, personnel action for professional employees. Ms. Whitman.
Good evening, members of the board. Tonight we bring 3 names of recommendations for hire. One is a new ag teacher replacing Arnie Ritterman. He's a graduate of Kingsville. This is A&M Kingsville. A&I Kingsville. A&M Kingsville. Used to be A&I Kingsville. Omar Garza. Christian Vanishek is going to be a special education teacher at Riesenmeister Middle School. And Taylor Winters, who you guys already know, has finally completed all of her requirements with the English component. She had the hours, she just needed that final exam, so now we can formally give her a contract and pay her for a cheer stipend too. So we're bringing her forward for approval, and then to recognize or acknowledge the resignations as listed.
Madam President,
Mr. Holt.
I move that we accept the recommendation to hire Omar Garza, Kristen Vanishek, and Taylor Winters, and accept the resignations as listed on our agenda.
All right, have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Mr. Flores, any discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. All in favor, same sign. Opposed, same sign. And it passed 7-0, Nancy, 7-0.
And one other thing, how long has Mrs. Day worked for us?
She can retire, but she hasn't worked with us a long, long time, I don't think. I'm thinking Miss Beer. No, I would have to double check, but she is retired.
No. I thought she'd been here a long time.
I may be thinking of another teacher. I'd have to pull her number of years, but she does qualify.
All right. All right. I don't believe we need to go into closed session for any reason. So we'll move on to board comments. Does anybody have anything they'd like to see come from the leadership team in the near future? Dr. Gutierrez, do you have any comments?
Just one important thing, the gifts from Weiner Elementary are in the mall area. Don't want y'all to forget those.
Okay, thank you. Because a lot of us go out that door. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Holt, second. Ms. Reel, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we will adjourn at 9:22. Thank you.